titled How the Texans and a Spa Enabled Deshaun Watson's Troubling Behavior. Watson met at least 66 women for massages over a 17-month period, far more than previously known. He had help from the Houston Texans, including non-disclosure agreements, in making appointments. John McClain with us, who covered the Texans and has covered the NFL for 5 decades. John, you know this story and the ins and outs with it. Right before the break, you said old news. In scanning this, is there any new news to what Jenny Vrentas has uncovered through these documents?
Well, first of all, in a deposition of his one of his people, he talked about it. This was weeks ago, maybe months ago, about the non-disclosure agreement given by the Texans after the first woman complained or was trying to reach a settlement, and they gave him that according to the deposition. And the thing about lining up a hotel, the Houstonian Hotel, which is our best luxury resort, and there's a lot of people, players, athletes, coaches, GMs that have memberships there because they have a great health club and spa besides being a luxury hotel with a restaurant. And so I'm sure that he was lined up with that back early in his career. And so the thing that got me about this was they've uncovered 66. What we knew was officially there were 22 women who sued. Now they're 24. There were 2 more talked to Sports Illustrated that didn't. That's 26. And then there were 18 provided by Watson's side who said he was a gentleman. That'd be 26, 30. That's 44 that we know of. And we've said all along, you'd be naive or stupid to think there weren't others who had given him massages who have not come forward because they didn't want to have death threats, which others say they've had since they've gone public with their civil suits. And so the New York Times says there's up to 66. And I'm curious why some have come forward, but they didn't join the lawsuit, or if they didn't want to get in with Tony Busby, who's representing the 24, they didn't sue on their own. And I guess they still could. And the Browns knew that there were a lot of shoes to drop, and they don't care. That's why they gave him $230 million guarantee, because they know eventually this will be behind him and he'll be a great young not young anymore, but a great quarterback again. But every day it seems like it's something different. And I think Roger Goodell needs to hand it down, and he can still go to practice and he can play in preseason, but when regular season begins, if you are suspended, unless you're on his exempt list, you've got to leave for the games.
I was reading or listening to something yesterday where they, forgive me, I can't remember the show. They were asking the question, will the league come down with some sort of discipline if the investigation wraps up, of course, because there's an independent investigator here. If they recommend suspension, will the league act quickly before mandatory minicamp would begin? That's set next week. And honestly, John, Cleveland signed up for this. Could the league just say, hey, Browns, like it or not, you gave them the contract, deal with the media scrutiny and the number of people that are going to be at that facility next week?
The league is not going to rush this because of the Browns. They've got to be thorough. They've got to be certain. And when the initial investigation turns it over to the person who'll decide the penalty, if any, if there's no penalty, and that's not going to happen, but if there were no penalty, there's nothing Roger Goodell or the person he appoints to handle the appeal could do about it. But say it's a year and Goodell knocks it down to half a year. I'm beginning to think, I always thought before it'd be 6 to 8 games. Season. They're under a lot of pressure because of what baseball did to Trevor Bauer. And even though they say that's got nothing to do with this, public opinion always has something to do with it. What the networks think. Well, the networks want him playing because it's going to get a lot of viewers. But I do think I think it'll be down by the start of training camp.
Well, you mentioned, I believe, 44 of the number of massage therapists that we knew about. I want to point out, just for the sake of being fair to this discussion, the NFL would have had this same information last year, correct?
Well, you would think they would. A lot of this came from their depositions, and the depositions, I don't even know if they've completed them, but a lot of it comes from that. And then the NFL investigated and talked to some of the women, a couple of the women, including Ashley Solis, who's been the one who's been the most out front, was very outspoken about the NFL investigation. That the person talking to her was disrespectful, she said, where she said Houston police were very respectful. So I do know this. The next step is they got to hand down the penalty. Then they'll have the appeal. Don't know how long the appeal will take. Considering it's Goodell or someone he appoints, it ought to take about 10 minutes, but that's not the process. But that's the next big step. And we may have things like the New York Times reports coming out almost weekly or monthly while he's suspended.